Hello, welcome back. I am a little bit late, but I had good reasons. We are ready to talk about, really, this is the video I have been planning to make on Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. I've taken way more time than I suppose a lot of other people have taken to go through it, and there was something weird about this book, so I was a little bit unsure what to say about it. I think I have established what I need to say about it now, so that's all good. Now, make sure you have some food, some drink, make sure you're comfortable. This is going to be probably a long discussion. I will try to be concise and clear about everything, but there's actually a lot more to say about this, and I am quite surprised how other reviews have approached this book. I was quite surprised, in fact, just how they sort of raved about it. And I'm not saying there aren't good things about this book, because there is, but there's also some telltale signs that something weird's going on, and I think I've figured out how to present that. So make sure you're comfortable, get ready, let's talk about dragons, because this book is really it's about dragons. Hi, welcome to How to D&D. My name is Fred Weller, and today I want to talk about Dungeons and Dragons. And specifically, it's a review on a book that's primarily about dragons. That's right. This is a Dungeon Master review. That's right, a Dungeon Master review of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons for the Dungeons and Dragons 5e game. Probably one of the most anticipated books, I would say, for last year, for 2021. Probably one of the most anticipated books, full stop, considering how popular these types of books have been in the past and how useful they have been to dungeon masters. The question is, does this book live up to the legacy that has been left behind, not just by TSR, but also by Wizards of the Coast, because Wizards of the Coast has made a lot of dragon books. More than a lot, in fact, quite a lot of dragon books, and they've done it extremely well. So have they done the right thing here? That's the question for today. I'm going to be running a poll at the same time. Please bear in mind that the poll is just an indication of where people's head is at. If you put your vote in and you change your mind, you can't later on, so make sure you vote when you have established what you think is your opinion. In this case, if you already have it established, that's great, but I'm going to run the poll, and now let's get on with the show. Let's actually talk about this very interesting book, and frankly I had hoped for something very much like the mythic Odysseys of Theros. Now, even if you don't like Magic the Gathering, one of the things about the mythic Odysseys of Theros is the organization of the book, how it is laid out and how it is presented as very much a dungeon master tool. It does have some player stuff in there, but it's very much a dungeon master tool, and it does it exquisitely. I mean, seriously, it does it so well. So could this book live up to that? Really quickly, I don't think it quite does that, and I don't understand why. So let's go through what I did notice about this book. This book is designed primarily for dungeon masters as a dragon source book, but it does include a few playable character options, which I'm not going to talk about until the very end and very briefly, because I've already done that. I've already talked about the player options. So instead, I'm focusing on the dungeon master stuff. There's some guidance for dungeon masters on role-playing dragons, which is reasonably useful. The thing to remember with all dragons is not every dragon is the same. Some of them behave differently. So as not all dragons behave the same way, you still need to check the specific dragon entries when role-playing them, because there is such a wide variety of different ways they act. And if you take dragons from one world to another world, they behave differently again. But these are the sorts of things you find out by going through the monster manual, or by going and checking out some of the lore masters on YouTube, some of the wiki pages. That information is there. AJ Pickett, Mr. Rex, various people who talk about those topics. Even the Dungeon Cast has been doing quite a lot of stuff on dragons. You may even find some stuff on Dungeon Dad, although unless it is a very specific and unusual dragon, it's probably not going to be talked about on Dungeon Dad's channel. So all of that is great, but we've got to bear in mind that probably could not put every single piece of information on dragons into one book. It would be quite a large book. If they got rid of the player stuff, possibly. Maybe if they rearrange things, possibly. But yeah, not everything is here in this one book. And I had to sit down because this is one of the things we need to understand is it reasonable to include every single type of dragon into one book? And I think you could do it. Whether it would offer you a lot of the other stuff that is presented in this book, I don't know. But I do get the distinct feeling when I was counting through the pages of the Dungeons & Dragons 5e Monster Manual and then looking at what they had already included as new content, I was starting to think that actually it might have been possible to do it. And so I'm going to say right now that I kind of feel like you may have been robbed a little bit from what it could have been, in terms of it could have been an awesome book, like the most amazing book under the sun. But they haven't laid it out or put the stuff in that really sort of was necessary. And also, I mean, the choice of font and size of font maybe help if it was a little bit smaller so you can squeeze more in, or as you'll find out, there's a lot of space taken up by stuff that doesn't necessarily need to be there. Okay, the dragon ecology is generally useful. I would say generally useful to substandard. Now, not everything is substandard. Some of it is generally quite useful, and some of it's not that great and could have been done better. So they cover things like the lifespan of a dragon, dragon goals, the reproduction of a dragon, what happens to a dragon when it dies. There's dragon adventure hooks, and you'll find dragon adventure hooks scattered throughout this book. They're not just in one place. And these dragon adventure hooks, they're very general in nature rather than being specific to a dragon type, to be clear. They talk about dragon gods, dragons shape-shifting and changing shape and transforming into other creatures, particularly humanoids, dragon organizations, followers of dragons. Probably, I would say, when I was looking at the follower section, which is very small, and I was expecting something like really useful here, like what kind of followers would be suitable for a dragon. And all I would have needed was a little table or chart to sort of list the creatures that I could use as followers. Now, we could say, oh, kobolds. Well, yeah, and what else, right? So, and it doesn't do a very good job of filling out followers for a dragon. It then talks about dragon encounters and adventure hooks and campaigns for dragons. So it covers a lot of the necessary stuff that you would need for role-playing a dragon, which is great, but it's like it could have been done a little bit better than it was. I almost feel like it was rushed. It does have that feeling of maybe they spent way too much time on another product and they needed to bump this out really quickly. I do feel like it was rushed in some way. Just because I've seen it. Wizards of the Coast has done this better in other older books in many cases. The Dragon Hoard section offers just enough useful information to distinguish the difference between the different types of hoards you would have for, say, a wormling, a young dragon, an adult dragon, and an ancient dragon. And I think that is useful. It was bare bones. It was just enough information to sort of get your head around, well, this is what it would be like for that age group of dragon. I don't know if you could have done it better, though. I'm just trying to think. I mean, AJ Pickett will probably tell me, yeah, it can be done better. But I'm personally, I'm not sure if it could have been. It just didn't feel like it was that meaty. I felt like they could have done something more with it. Okay. Otherwise, Dragon Hoards discusses a few dragon hoard characteristics, things that occur in a dragon horde, or what happens with a dragon horde. And I think these are interesting. They certainly begin that process. I think you can take it further than Wizards of the Coast has taken it. I think they've left a lot out that they could have been included, but they do talk about linking items from different hordes, which is kind of interesting. It talks about the quirks that a dragon horde might have, whether they are haunted, because some dragon hordes can be haunted. They can have curses on them, which is always interesting and fun for the dungeon master, maybe not so much for the players, but I always like the idea of including curses. The concept and how you'd go about breaking a curse on a dragon horde, which I think is perfect. Now, for those of you who remember the Hobbit, and there is the movie itself talks about, basically there's a curse on the hoard of treasure and the gold there. So it's filling in that sort of gap. I like the fact that they have included it here. It talks about regional effects in a very general sense and gives you some examples. It talks about horde magic and sort of the magic. Dragons are magical, and so it makes sense that because a dragon spends so much time on their hoard of treasure, that the magic from their body seeps into the actual treasure hoard itself in some way. And there are 4 handy dragon hoard tables on what dragon hordes might contain. So this is in the same vein as the treasure tables in the Dungeon Master Guide, for those who are wondering. They're not huge. They're quite simple. They take up like all of 2 pages, I think it is. That's about it. But did you really need any more than that? I frankly think that it was probably more than enough. There's also a Dragon Horde Mundane items table. It's like a small trinket table with some unique and mysterious items. It's presented as a percentile chart, but it's not actually a percentile chart. I think this is it's probably one of the biggest charts or tables there, and probably the standout feature for me, rather than the other tables, which were, they're all right. Okay. So, given that we got this far, let's talk about the things that start to get me excited about this book. Because the other stuff that I talked about is all right. It's fine. This is where I feel like the strongest and the best aspect of this book exists. And I want to make it clear when I talk about this topic that even though some of it may not sound completely positive, what they have done is almost exactly what we needed. Exactly what a dungeon master needed in their game to make it more interesting in some way. And this is the one that stands out for me. So everything else in the book, you can, like, bestiaries are fine, that's great, but this is the thing, the meat and potatoes that allows you to homebrew and make your own adventures. There are 15, yes, 15 impressive and sometimes confusing Dragon Lair maps. Yeah, that's a lot, isn't there? 15 impressive and sometimes confusing Dragon Lair maps. But there's a lot of layers, and there are a lot of pretty extensive maps. The simple monochrome style Dyson logo, for those of you who don't like Dyson logo, I totally understand. Okay, it is very practical, so I think that his style of drawing makes it very easy for a dungeon master to draw it out, but it is absolutely definitely going to suck on a virtual tabletop. So for those of you who play on a tabletop that's virtual and not a real tabletop, you're not going to like these maps very much, because they are simply a monochrome style Dyson logo, okay? But we do get maps, and if there had not been maps in this thing, I would have been extremely upset. But they do have them. But they have a bit more than that. I would also like to preface this, that even though they have so many, not every dragon gets a lair map. That's right, not every single dragon in this book gets a lair map. So deep dragons don't get a lair map. The dragon turtle, which I would have liked to have a sort of an underwater, under the ocean layout of what a dragon turtle's lair might be like. Maybe they don't have lairs. Maybe that's why it's not here. The fairy dragon, the moonstone dragon doesn't get one, and the shadow dragon doesn't get a lair map. I don't understand why. Is Dyson Logo that expensive to hire to do maps? I mean, seriously, what's going on there? Okay, let's see if I can get past this word. I might struggle. The Dragonomicon Chapter 5, okay, could have been done better. And what I think would have made it better is having a list of creatures that live in specific dragon lairs. I think that is the one piece of information that for a dungeon master was necessary to help them understand what kind of minions to use for a specific dragon, rather than it's always going to be a kobold. Okay? And it's not in this part. Otherwise, that whole chapter, chapter 5, is pretty well structured. As I said, it is probably the best part of the entire book. Now, how is it structured? It's structured like this. Each dragon that they talk about, it gets a sort of a dragon creation table. This is basically sort of some personality traits and some other stuff to sort of think about player characters, like in personality traits, ideals, bonds, flaws, but you don't get all of those. You get 2 tables, the personality traits and one other. Okay, I believe it might be, it's either a bond or an ideal. It's something like that. Then you get some adventure hooks that would be appropriate for that type of dragon. But you don't just get one table of adventure hooks. No. In many cases, they give you a connection or kind of like an adventure hook for that dragon type, dependent on what age they are. So if it's a red dragon, you get the a whole table for the wormling, then the young dragon, then the adult dragon, and then your ancient dragon. And that's like awesome. As I said, you get your lair maps, you get some detail. So they actually label the maps and give some sections a name, and then they have like an entry which actually details the lair. So what is that particular part of the lair like? So there's some written text to actually describe it to you, so that you can make something with it. Whether that's your own box text, or whether that's just to help you understand how to describe it to the players, who knows? But it's really, really useful. Then it talks about the types of treasure specific to that dragon that you would find in that particular treasure hoard for that lair, including some art objects. There's actually there seems to be a table for art objects for all of the dragons, as far as I can remember, which is it really does give it a very different feel. So you can build every dragon and every lair. It doesn't matter if you've got a red dragon. Your red dragon's probably going to be different to somebody else's red dragon. So that is what really makes this absolutely awesome. That one chapter. It's quite a large chapter. It's not a very small chapter at all. It probably doesn't cover as many dragons as you would like. I know I found myself thinking, well, this is good, but keep going. And it's not there. And like I said, having monsters or creatures that are specific to that particular dragon and their lair, that live there, that a dragon would allow them to stay there, I think that would have been really useful. I know that's the information that everybody's going to be chasing later on. Okay, let's talk about the bestiary. The bestiary consists of some very solid dragon and monster concepts as far as I'm concerned, with the standouts being, I would say, the draconians, the dragon followers, the Hoard scarabs, the Hoard mimic. Yes, there's a Hoard mimic, would you believe it? And the elder brain dragon. Now, you might have noticed that the things that I have selected, there's only one of those is actually a dragon as such. All the rest are associated in some way to a dragon lair or a dragon or the dragon hoard or something like that. Or they're sort of like a follower. Okay? Now, dragon followers are essentially not what you would think. I still think they're very good. I'm glad that they are there, but not every dragon's going to have those types of followers all the time. They're basically humanoids, okay? And a lot of them look very human, or dwarven, or elven, or something like that. So, why have I not said there's a standout dragon in this particular book? And the reason is that, frankly, there seems to be a little bit of a problem here in that I find myself looking at these monsters and these dragons and thinking, well, this is the same thing we have seen in the monster manual. Now, if you're happy with how the monster manual is for 5e, then you won't mind in the slightest. For me, it doesn't really go far enough. Yes, a few changes have been made, but it didn't really go far enough. Those were the things that for me stood out. It wasn't actually the dragons. Now, how did that happen? Why is it that that happens? Well, we're going to go into this a little bit more. The monster and dragon lore sections are sadly lacking in significant detail at times. They have to compete, unfortunately, I've noticed, with enormous stat blocks. Now, I think with the development of a new game system in 2024 and a different focus on the stat block and how it works, which to me looks very much like a 4e design, I believe what we're probably going to get is we're going to get bloat in the stat block rather than a cutting down on the stat block or a reorganization so it takes up less space. Another thing that you'll find is the lack of dragon lore and information on those dragons is also a product of not just a larger stat blocks, but Fizban quotes. There's a lot of Fizban quotes in here, and would you believe it, and I know a lot of you are going to be quite upset, I know layout is a big issue, so you don't want to cram everything in, but seriously, this is a resource book. None of us are really going to care, okay? Most of us just want the tools. There's a lot of blank space in this book. This book has a lot of blanks, like there's just nothing there. Just a big blank white section or a coloured section, but there's no text, there's no information, and sometimes there doesn't even seem to be any artwork, or the artwork is tiny and the space is huge. So I don't know what they were thinking. I feel like this is what happens in a magazine or a book when they run out of time and they're trying to fill out the page count, but they just don't have enough information to fill out the page count, if you know what I mean. And I think this is exactly what's happened in this case. So it's a bit sad that this is the... now, I've had a discussion with Dungeon Dad and with AJ Pickett in particular about this book, and we've all three of us have come to the conclusion that this book is just not the book it should have been, and that there is just a huge lack of information that you really wanted to have there. Now, if you're completely new to Dungeons & Dragons, you won't know any different. For you, it'll be like awesome. But if you are familiar with some of the older versions of Dungeons & Dragons, you will not be very happy. The monster and dragon stat blocks are generally the same standard mechanics seen in the monster manual. So if you're looking to see some sort of surprising stuff like what other third-party publishers are doing, like Kobold Press, you're really not going to get that in this book. I hate to say it, the mechanics behind their monsters are very much exactly the same as they always have been. Now you might say, well, that's fitting. They should, dragons should be the same as they are generally in the monster manual, okay? But it doesn't get you excited about things. The only thing that they have changed in these things is adding in the proficiency bonus, so you can see what the proficiency bonus is, and dragons now have spells to cast. So they've included in them, in the stat block, spells that a particular dragon will cast, which frankly I think most dungeon masters might already be doing. Like, that sort of thing was included in the Advanced Dungeons & Dragons Monstrous Manual for 2nd edition, where you would actually get some listed spells that the dragon would cast or be able to cast. or some magical abilities that it would be able to perform in some way. So it's kind of going back in that vein to a certain degree. The only problem is that's really the only addition, and since most of us were giving our dragons spells already, unless of course you were very new to the game, it's not a huge benefit, unfortunately. But at least I suppose they are creeping further back to some of the aspects that we saw in some of the really good monster manuals in the past. Although this is not really a monster manual. Although a good portion of the book is just a bestiary. The great worms have potential with their mythic abilities, kind of similar to a video game where what they can do changes when they lose all their hit points and then they regain some hit points and they have these special abilities. We've seen it before. The mythic monster was detailed in the Mythic Odysseys of Theros. So it's kind of tried to duplicate that. I like the idea. I think that the great worms, which are even more powerful than the ancient dragons, are a good addition to the book. And I'm glad we see them here. And I'm sure that there'll be many people excited to try them out. Because this is one time where you do get some mechanics that are a little bit different to what you're used to, right? Particularly when the characters don't necessarily have to beat the great worm in its second form. They can beat the thing, get the experience points or reward for defeating it the first time, and if it's too much for them, they can bug out. But if they don't bug out and they defeat it again, they get an extra reward, which I thought was a very smart idea. I thought it was very, very clever. It also means this dragon can come back into your campaign at a later date. Recurring villains are hard to do sometimes in a game. So this is one time, and I'm glad to see that sort of thing here. Okay. The book has no index, and the contents page is definitely not enough to find everything quickly. This is one of the things I definitely found is looking through this book. Magic items are in a chapter rather than they don't have an appendix for them at the back, all in one place. So you are reliant on using something like the contents page to find what you're looking for. I think there is some benefit to approaching a book like this like a resource, so having a section specific for it. Now, magic items are in a section, but they're kind of lost amongst the other things. Pardon me, my nose is going. They're kind of lost amongst the other things such as magic spells and draconic gifts and other sort of class bits and pieces. So I don't know that was necessarily a great idea. I am always speeding up on Wizards of the Coast not having an index. I would like to point out that Mythic Odysseys of Theros had an index. Not a particularly large one. This book should have had an index. It really needed one. There is a creatures table for challenge rating and creature type at the back. So that's actually really useful for you for finding out sort of how powerful they are. It's all in one place, easy to find, types of creatures. Now most of the book is full of dragons, so you're probably not going to be too concerned about creature type, frankly. But challenge rating might be useful to you. One of the things I can't help but notice that the chapter 3 and 4 are poorly laid out. I don't think the layout for those particular chapters is as good as that could have been. I think it could have been better. It would have made it easier to find the things that you need in there, rather than trying to rely on a contents page, which is not necessarily able to do everything in this case, because there's a lot of little bits and pieces within those two chapters, which you need broken down a little bit more so it's easier to find what you're looking for. This is quite a small book at only 224 pages, but about 200 pages are Dungeon Master tools. So if you were concerned that the book was not for you as a Dungeon Master, no, the vast majority of it is Dungeon Master tools rather than player option stuff. So if you're a player in the game, you're probably not going to be liking this book too much. There's no handy pull-out full colour poster map. I rather like these sorts of things. I know they generally tend to include them in something like an adventure rather than a source book, but there have been occasions where they have included a map in a source book, right? We do get those sorts of things. The Eberron book is a good example, okay? Where we have a world, this is the time where you do want those poster maps. Would it have added that much more to the expense on this? I don't know that it necessarily would have. I would have liked to have seen it. I'm sure everybody would have liked to have seen a double-sided poster map in here, but it's not there. The front cover art is epic, with a red dragon and a crystal ancient dragon charging into battle, with the wizard Fizban casting protective magic for some bystanders who could easily wind up getting wiped out if they're not too careful. I don't know why they're standing so close. This is not the sort of thing you want to be standing close to. Look, the standard art cover is, in my opinion, superior to the alternative cover art. I don't like the alternative cover art that much. I think the standard one is actually better, in my opinion. Now, let's start talking a little bit about the artwork, because you're going to be surprised, unfortunately. I've got some things to say about it. The interior artwork is a mix of impressive dragon scenes, although a lot of that artwork's quite small, and then brightly coloured cartoon characters. Now this seems to be something that Wizards of the Coast is doing nowadays, trying to appeal to a younger audience, and we do wind up with some things looking a little bit cartoony. For those of you who do not like the cartoony look, I totally understand, but that's what's in the book in terms of art. What disappoints me, the most disappointing aspect of this whole thing, is that a lot of the artwork, well, not a lot of it, but some of the artwork in the bestiary has incomplete, rudimentary concept drawings and art pieces. That's right, some of them do not look like they're finished, or they're so basic and simple that they really don't do anything for me. I don't think they'll do anything for anybody, frankly. What is more concerning to me, and I thought was more telling, and I only just discovered this, I believe it was last night. I didn't realize what was going on till just last night, and that is that a lot of the artwork in here is recycled from Magic the Gathering, the card game. They had a card series of dragons, and they have recycled so much of that artwork for this book. So the vast majority of it does not appear to be original new artwork. It's actually just taken from the archives from Magic the Gathering. Now, I can totally understand art is expensive, but if you're thinking that you were really getting your money's worth here, I don't know that you necessarily are, because a lot of the art on those cards is probably the wrong scale. Do you know what I mean? That's why a lot of the artwork in the book seems a bit small at times, where it could have been blown up and a little bigger and taken up a bit more space. It made it easier for you to show it to a player, okay, in your game if you wanted to. So, that's right. I don't have an issue with Wizards of the Coast including and using Magic the Gathering art. For me, that's fine, okay? What I do have an issue with is so much of the art from Magic the Gathering being utilised for this book. Because I know they've saved money, but a lot of those pieces, when you look at them, they certainly, they could have really done with being a little bit bigger. Now, and maybe is the science of digital expansion so difficult to actually blow them up a little bigger? I think the problem is the way they've been drawn has been for a card to include in a box, rather than to lay them out in a way that's going to work on a page rather than on a card. So I kind of wonder if maybe that was just a little bit too much money pinching, if you ask me, frankly. Yeah, I'm not hugely impressed by that occurring. So if you're wondering if that was there was something odd about the artwork, it's because you noticed it from Magic the Gathering. Not all the artwork is from Magic the Gathering. Okay, so let's talk very briefly about the playable options in here. I kind of already done a video on this, so I'm going to be very brief. I would say that the playable character options attempt to improve the Dragonborn race and its breath weapon, and generally have succeeded in doing so, but it still doesn't have dark vision. Like there's or blind sight or anything like that. that is sort of associated with dragons, or anything. Oh, look, I've gone over this before. I just don't understand why they keep doing that. The two subclasses are either it's a combat-focused subclass, or you get a spread over all of the pillars of play, which is great to see. So I would say the Drakewarden Ranger is very much combat-focused. It's like a better version of the Beastmaster Ranger. So I can totally understand people wanting to play this character. It's it's going to be very strong in battle, if you ask me. Then the way of the Ascendant Dragon Monk. This is actually, I feel, is attempted to try to cover as many of the pillars of play, and it seems to be not all key focused. You don't have to spend a key point on everything to do stuff. Thank God for that. I've talked about that particular subclass before. That's the end of that. There's 3 dragon magic spells that I think sort of stand out. I'm not going to go over them. All the rest are like, they're all right. I think you could probably just get away with using the player's handbook rather than worrying about those things. Then I would say there's a few unique magic items worth checking out as well. I think there were like 2. It's like an elixir or a potion and a figurine. It transforms into a canary and a gold dragon. And I've talked about them before. They're all right. I wouldn't say that they were outstanding in terms of their design. Frankly, most of the magic spells and the items seem to revolve around transforming into a dragon or creating a dragon spirit of some kind. That seems to be the focus. Now, the draconic feats and gifts have awful lore and mechanics in general. I've talked about them before. I think they are probably one of the worst aspects of this book in terms of player character options. I don't think they do what they need to do, and that's the end of that for me. Now, we're kind of getting into the general stuff. These are my final thoughts on this book. Things that really have annoyed me a lot. I dislike a book that includes a lot of blank space. I saw this happening in the Dungeons & Dragons 4e Monster Manual. Some of the later Monster Manuals, they didn't have enough information to put into the book, so they left great huge blank spaces everywhere. Like that's not good book layout. What are you doing? What are you thinking? I don't like it when they do that. It's a sign that they have rushed the process of putting this product together. So that's one thing that annoys me a lot. Then I would say the Fizban quotes written by Amy Vorpal are the standard boring prattle and confusing nonsense I expect from Wizards of the Coast books when they focus on a particular character. Like Fizban, there's not even a Fizban stat block in here. Why are we even talking about Fizban? I've said it before, this book could have been called The Treasury of Dragons, and that is it. It didn't have to be called the Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. It's got no bearing on the character whatsoever. Now, I like Amy Vorpal's work. I think this is probably her worst work ever. And I understand why she picked up the job. I've kind of said that before. I like Amy's work. I think she did a great job in Candlekeep Mysteries with her adventure. I think it was outstanding for me. But I think those quotes added nothing to it, and it could have easily, if you got rid of all of that, you could fit in more dragons, another couple of maps easily. You could have included a lot of things that are actually like missing. There is so much missing from this book. One of the things I had discussed with AJ Pickett and Dungeon Dad, and that is a thing called the Dragon's Crate game. There's no lore about the Dragon's Crate game in here. It's not included in the book. We thought it would be in here, but it's not. And it leaves out many key dragons. There are a lot of dragons in Dungeons & Dragons. To try to include all of them, I still think it would have been possible. But they haven't really gone the full Monty on this. They really haven't put everything into it. I feel like this, again, is a rush project. The Great Game, for those of you who are wondering what the heck am I talking about, go and talk to AJ Pickett. But I will say this. The Great Game for Dragons is them manipulating all of the other species or races. with the ultimate goal of taking over control. The new Dragon Kingdom comes into play. It is one of the strongest and most interesting aspects and motivations that dragons have, particularly the evil dragons, or the neutral dragons, or if you're not using alignment, metallic dragons. I mean, even chromatic dragons, I suppose you can metallic, gem, whatever. But it's a major force and motivation that you can use in your story if you had information on it, but you don't have any information on the great game that the dragons play. It's like a chess game. And we don't get it. Now, another thing, because I have older dragon books, there's no dragon biology diagrams. We used to get a diagram and the biology of the dragon. Now, they talk a little bit about the biology of the dragon in Fizbans, but we don't get a diagram. Like, they have old diagrams. It's not like they couldn't have pulled that from archives and updated it. Why? Probably because they're just trying to just save money on art. So yeah, it has existed in older publications. So if you wanted the biology of the dragon, you could have had it in this book if they'd decided to actually get their act together and do it. My summary on this book. Man, this sucks. I'm going to say this. It really sucks when I have to say something like this. I was so excited for this book. My summary is that this book could have been amazing. Like, absolutely amazing. If it had more of everything. like, frankly, it needed more of everything. Instead of it's really just a mediocre resource book with some misguided layout and missing information. And what is so frustrating is that Wizards of the Coast has done it better in the past. They have done this sort of thing in the past better. Is it because of the new design team or the new people working on their projects? Is it because Wizards of the Coast is feeling the pressure in terms of printing and the cost of printing starting to go up, and so they're trying to make their books smaller? Well, I don't feel like that's necessarily the case, because it doesn't seem to me like every book they put out is going to be looked upon as like, okay, well, we can't do 250 pages minimum. We've only got enough stuff for 200 pages, so let's spread it out to 224 pages, and that should be enough to keep everybody happy. Or is this book, we've made this book, but it's really, the only things in here for Dungeon Master, so the only ones who are going to buy Fizban's Treasury of Dragons are going to be a Dungeon Master. Well, okay, so let's not put so much effort into it. Oh dear. So close. So close. Now, I would like to say, even with that, even with those problems, because the bestiary is so large, because the section on chapter 5 is so big and takes up so much of the book, even any sort of problems with some of the other stuff that I've mentioned, it may well not be a big concern to you. You may not get everything that you want out of here, but there's actually a pretty good amount of stuff for a Dungeon Master that you could utilize. And I'm not saying like you run a campaign which is just about dragons. I feel like this is a book you probably could use over a number of years if you're in it for the long game. If you're not in it for the long game, it's probably going to be less useful to you. For those of you who already have dragon books, you may decide that this is something to miss. You might well find that some of your older books actually do a better job. Not always. I still feel like chapter 5 is pretty brilliant. Frankly, I think chapter 5 does a really good job. But is chapter 5 enough to warrant you buying the book for full price and not getting it at a discount? That's really the question, isn't it? Really? I mean, do you want to pay that price for just a small section of a book? So I'm hoping that this was useful to you. If it was, fantastic. I know I've taken quite a lot of time going over everything, but I felt like it was necessary. There were things that needed to be discussed. I've tried to give you as an objective view of the book, but like any review, it's not going to be objective. It's based on my opinion of what I see. And so you have to take with a grain of salt. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. Now, if you like what you see, that's great, because I actually have many other videos that cover this topic, and Dungeons and Dragons and so forth, and Dragons full stop, and role-playing games and 5e and all that sort of stuff. So if you're a player or a dungeon master, there's bound to be a video out there that you can go and check out if you wanted to on my channel. If you want to support the channel so I keep doing video content like this, you can through Patreon, the Amazon affiliate links down in the description, the merchandise shelf underneath all of my videos, or just watch my videos. That's fine too. I do a lot of live streams every week. Do the usual YouTube things. You know what I'm talking about. That share, like, and subscribe. Hit the bell button to be notified when I'm live. I'm live every week, and when I publish new videos, and I publish quite a few videos. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. I'm not gone. I am just getting my camera ready, and we are going to open up to Q&A, questions and answers. Please do me a favor in the Q&A section of this. I'm going to put hashtag question, but it's really, really helpful when you do hashtag question so I can pick things out. I will not necessarily read out everything. I have a Dungeon Master round table today, and it's with Jordan, the PH is silent, Indo Structo Boy, and the Bear Bard Tales. So I'll be hanging out with them. We'll be talking about monsters. So yes, I can't hang around for too long, but we will definitely have some Q&A. And I'll get through the this. Is my eyes working today, or is this better? No, that's slightly better. Okay, all right. So, how are we doing with this this poll? Okay, so do you want to purchase Fizban's Treasury of Dragons? Oh, that does not look good. So we've got here yes, 18%. No, it's 28%. So there's a lot of people who don't really find this book appealing. Undecided on purchase, 31%. I can understand that. I will eventually do a flip through and review. So if you want to actually look at what's actually in the whole book, that will come out, but there could be some time off. It might be a while before you see that released on my channel. And you've already purchased the book. Book is 23%. Interesting. And 39 people voted. Okay, so Overboard DM, how's it going, Joe? You're actually on the hunt for a good condition Dragonomicon, yeah. From 3rd ed edition. Yeah, see, this is the thing. I don't know that the 4th ed edition Dragon books were as good as the 3rd ed edition Dragon books. Yeah, it does have great information. It is a very good source book. So this is what I mean by Wizards of the Coast has done Dragon books better in the past. It's ridiculous. I don't understand why Wizards of the Coast... I mean, they just experimenting. They're just unsure about what's going to work. I mean, Chris Perkins has been around a long time, isn't he? Chris Perkins has been around such a long time. He knows a lot of those older books and publications. He's been involved in them. So this is weird. I just don't get it. What's that? Pale Rider? Did the naked black dragon nice and cuddly. Okay, all right. Oh dear. Now I might get this name wrong. Dirtinius. I only purchased the D&D Beyond version, okay, of the book, but I'm still waiting for the Spanish version in physical the physical book to arrive. Okay. I'll be interested to know what your opinion was of the book. I'm sure other people who are thinking of buying it will be interested too. Pale Rider, I think Mr. Welch did a video on the difference of Mysteria dragons. Well, he probably did. That's his thing. Rex Fellis, hello, how's it going? Byron Lee, how's it going, mate? I had heard from another YouTuber that if dragons are used in a game, there's very little chance of surviving the battle, let alone defeating them. You're probably left with a TPK. Byron, no, but if you play your dragon right, there's a good chance, even if the party manage to fight it off, that the dragon will fly away. Dragons aren't going to just stick around, okay, till they get butchered, which means the dragon can come back later on. And that's when things get tricky, because dragons can attack at night, and they are better at navigation than any of your player characters, even with dark vision, at night. So flying overhead and being breathed on while you're sleeping in the camp is the sort of thing that a dragon would do. No. Look, it depends on what level they are. It depends on the strength of the dragon. 5e dragons really aren't as badass as they used to be. Frankly, I think it comes down to the dragon you select and the level of the characters and the skill level of the characters, the players in particular. They need to have a high skill level for them to find it easy. But even if you do it right, it's probably going to be a bit painful. And the environment that you use makes a big difference. So, no, I wouldn't say that's the case. It's maybe just how they have approached it. I think there's so what of effort put into. Okay, so you're trying to explain to this. I'm trying to read this and understand. I think there's something effort put on dragons instead of the Tiamat race. You mean the dragonborn? You're talking about the dragonborn. I also think there could be more bosses in a druidic world with the same DC as the dragons. I'm not sure what this is all about. I'm a little bit lost. Warlord of Art, hello, how are you doing? No, it's the other way round, okay? Capcom got the idea for their video game from Dungeons and Dragons, not the other way round. Okay. What do you got here, Rex, fellas? Your poll may be off. I could not see the purchased option and selected yes. Well, that's strange. Now I can see the purchased option here when I look at it. So that's odd. I can only assume that YouTube may have some technical issues right now. That may be what's going on. It's all right. I got the basic gist of it. What do you got here, Pale Rider? Right, yeah. So older books did sort of give you a spell list, but it was sort of you were either told or it was assumed that you would just add more spells for a dragon. And dragons don't cast spells like humans. It's a different kettle of fish. Hello, David Scott. How's it going? McLovin. Was it edited by Chris Perkins? Maybe there is your answer. Well, I mean, I suppose it's possible. Maybe I do believe that Jeremy Crawford does a lot of the overseeing of the final products. But who knows? Who knows? I don't know that this is. I mean, this sort of thing happens quite often, and a lot of these books are overseen by Jeremy Crawford rather than Chris Perkins. But in any case, I mean, both of them have been doing this for a very long time. I believe that their schedule for release is so tight now that they probably rush things, which is why we get odd stuff occurring in these books. Slick Nasty, I see your question. I'm heading there now. Oh, and then Dick's Bumpkin's there with a question as well. All right. Hello, Alec. As a DM, I have a homebrew with an idea with a copper great worm. Oh, okay. Yeah, look, you're all going to wind up, if you wanted more lore, you're just going to go wind up checking out AJ Pickett's stuff because he just does it better. Do you know what I mean? Okay, Dick's Bumpkin, your question. What's your opinion on the new dragon egg eater monster in Fizban's? I looked at it, I was tempted to say something about it, and then I decided not to. I thought it was all right. It's got an interesting concept behind it, which I thought was interesting, but was it standout for me? It didn't quite go onto my list as standout. I would do something else. I mean, I would probably keep the concept, and then I would probably do something with the stat block. But that's just me. Okay. Slick Nasty, your question. What is the next week's video going to be about? Okay. All right. Yeah, sure. I'll tell you what it is. Next week's video, I'm now on holiday. I was very tempted to decide that I would not live stream for the next 2 weeks, and I would just go and put my head down and get all these Dungeons and Dragons classes written up, ready to run for people. For dungeon masters and players. So I would teach Dungeons and Dragons online through Lighthall, and so get all that class material done. I've decided I will do a live stream next week. I'm not going to do any live stream painting because I just don't, it will chew up too much of my time. I have to, the reason for taking time off now is to get this new job up and running, and that is to provide Dungeons and Dragons classes. Eventually 5 days a week. That's right, 5 days a week. Not once a week, not once a month, but 5 days a week. And they be free, and there be no ads. And all you need to do is sign up. And that is it. And offer something that you have not seen before. Like, really, seriously, offer something you have not seen before. So, next week is Silvery Barbs. I'm going to explain to people why my group banned Silvery Barbs at our table. That is the topic for next week. The topic for the week after, I haven't completely decided, but I suspect it will be Wally DM's book. Flute Salute, how's it going, Jordan? I don't think I'd buy it unless I was going to use a lot of dragons and I was a DM. That's exactly, Jordan, that makes so much sense. That's exactly where I would be at. And if you already have that particular, if you have the Draconomicon, oh God, I can't say it for some reason. If you have older dragon books, you probably don't need this one. You really probably don't need it. So if you guys were wondering why I have waited so long to talk about Silvery Barbs, and everybody's already put out their videos, the reason is I was a player playing with Silvery Barbs. I got the decision to ban it was the first session, 3 hours. I got the thing banned, and then our DM said, "Fred, I know you run a YouTube channel. I'll let you continue using it." And one of my other mates is using it as well. So there's 2 of us in the group that had it. I'm going to let you guys continue using it so you can collect more information. So we've been play testing it for weeks, months. And we finally came to the conclusion last week that we knew everything we needed to know about the spell and what it could do and what it was like. So now that we have actually play tested it and seen what it's like in the game, and everybody's had a chance to give their feedback on it, I'm going to talk about it. Because that's what sensible people do, right? Is right, okay, we've got something, we think it's overpowered, well, let's test it first. So that's what we did. And yes, even though I got it banned in 3 hours, we still played with it for months before we decided it was going out of the game. The decision had already been made many months ago. I wouldn't say that I am the most skilled exploiter of rules, but I certainly did my best. Okay. Okay. So this will probably explain to you how to use the spell. It's probably a more of a player guide with a warning for dungeon masters, because you'll find things go haywire. Okay, Dinks Bumpkin, what do you got here? I'm just excited for the miniature line. This book will spawn. Right. Okay, that's a good point. More dragons, right? Hopefully good ones. What do you got here, Alec? Question. Let me just drink some water and I'll answer your question without gurgling too much. All right. So Alec's question is, Bergstrom, I think I got that name right. Do you think the lack of law on the great game is to do the fight against the enslavement in the realms? Oh, so do you think it's a backlash? So do I think it's a backlash against slavery in the game, that they have excluded the great game that the dragons play? It may well be, but frankly, I think that Wizards of the Coast has misunderstood the importance of including these things in the game. So one of the things, for those of you who don't know, my degree is in psychology, mathematics, and philosophy. Plus I have a teaching degree, okay? And I have some counselling training as well. So there's a lot going on, but one of the reasons I like Dungeons and Dragons is, given the sorts of things that happen in our society, and because you're like in the past, when people were unhappy with something, they could just rise up and overthrow whoever was doing something. Like when things got out of hand, right, they would take up arms and they would go to war. And they would either chop off the heads of those in power, the monarchy, or displace them in some way, okay? Or if, for example, the American Civil War, that was a fight about slavery and other stuff, but slavery, right? The fight was around abolishing slavery, and the South didn't want it, but the North did. And so, for me, those sorts of things in our current world are much harder to achieve because of technology, tanks, guns, missiles, nuclear weapons, airplanes, powered ships, all that sort of stuff. So the kind of weaponry and the technology that monitors all of your behavior. So society as a whole cannot rise up against inequality and deal with things like they used to. So we wind up with a society who tends to come across as being a bunch of pussies, frankly, who are not concerned about what happens to their kids, and frankly, the people who come after they have left this world, and they wouldn't throw their lives away to fight for that kind of freedom. We're talking about freedom of all sorts of different things. I'm not talking about woke or social justice, okay? They're on a different planet as far as I'm concerned. I don't know what they're trying to deal with, but it ain't the real stuff. So for me, Dungeons and Dragons deals with all of the bad stuff that humans get up to, like slavery, murder, genocide, all of those horrible things can be role-played in a Dungeons and Dragons game. And the fact that they can be played in a Dungeons and Dragons game, and you're actually quite safe. Like, you don't have to worry about somebody actually putting chains on you and dragging you through the streets and then making you slave for the rest of your life, working in a sweat house or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about those things in real life when you're playing in a Dungeons and Dragons game. But you can role play fighting against it. This is the actual characters for me. This is why I don't really like evil campaigns, okay? It's because I want people to role play doing the things that they are scared to do in real life. Because my hope is that one day, if you practice doing it in Dungeons and Dragons and other role play games, but Dungeons and Dragons is the biggest one, My hope is that people will grow enough balls and change their mindset and realize that there might be some sacrifice required to actually change what's going on in their world. So instead of making the choice to go and work in a supermarket, they'll go to school and become a nurse or a doctor and look after people who are sick. Or instead of selling automobiles or fridges or some other electronic device, they'll decide that actually the best thing they can do with their time is to go overseas and build infrastructure for waterways and so forth that will help people grow food, or teach people how to grow food in countries where they struggle to do so. Do you know what I mean? Or they will go and fight in a war to free somebody from something that is obviously tyranny and dictatorship. I want that to be played out in Dungeons and Dragons, that fight. Because if we do that in the game, then there's the hope that one day some of that will not just go through our imagination, it will become part of us as people and how we live our life. I know this seems strange, and if you're running away and you're freaking out, but it's one of the reasons why I always wanted Dungeons and Dragons to be mainstream. Okay? And that is the key thing. It's with technology advancing, our civilization is not advancing at the same rate. It's actually going backwards. And so I'm hoping that this sort of thing will help. Does that make sense? It is one of the reasons why I chose to work for people with intellectual disabilities and in the social services, with people with brain injuries and mental illness and physical disabilities and so forth. I did that rather than making the choice to go and work in a supermarket or in a retail store or in a manufacturing company. Do you know what I mean? To serve people rather than and our nation as a whole and our people as a whole, rather than just thinking about how much money I could make. Does that make sense? Now, we all have to go through that process of deciding if we want to make that decision or not. And I'm hoping that Dungeons and Dragons will get people to think that way. It's also why I love Star Trek, because Star Trek is sort of like the advancement of civilization. And I feel like roleplay games are instrumental in doing that. So it's probably partly why they left out the great game, but I don't think that many of the people who were involved in the creation of Fizban's Treasury of Dragons actually know that very much about dragon lore. I think they actually know very little, even though they have access to all of the resources. Like Wizards of the Coast has it all there. Ginzo, like if I get your name wrong, Ginzo, I do apologise. Greetings from Trinidad and Tobago. Oh, okay. I used the book. It's handy for DMing. Well, good. If you're finding it useful, great. Sorry about that. I got gas. Slick Nasty question. Any other channels you recommend for D&D content that have live streams with Q&As similar to yours? There's nothing similar to me. Are there channels that I think you might find useful? There is. I think Indostructo Boy or Taryn does breakdowns on existing mechanics. He's a designer. Okay, so if you're into design of the character classes, feats, spells, stuff like that, that's one of the things that he does. And he spends quite a lot of time in a live stream going over that sort of stuff, Slick Nasty. Okay, here's the other thing. I would say that if you want to pick out live streamers who do a really good job of sort of covering stuff, Luke from the DM's Lair, I don't always agree with what Luke has to say. But even though I don't particularly like a lot of the stuff that Luke does nowadays, he is fairly consistent in the fact that he does put out a live stream content and has a Dungeon Master Q&A. But it's usually very general. It's not sort of focused on a particular topic. But I think that what he does is useful to some of you. And he's obviously significantly larger and more popular than I am. So he must be doing something right, even if I don't necessarily agree with everything he has to say. I think live stream and... Okay, so here's the thing. I've been talking a lot with creators in the RPG and Dungeon Master scene, and trying to encourage more and more of them to talk in live streams about stuff, and to talk specifically to a topic. So Slick Nasty, I have been, whether you realize it, I have been trying to inspire them or influence them to do it. A lot of them are very, very scared because they feel like YouTube will destroy them in the analytics and punish them for doing live stream content. And until YouTube stops them being scared of that fact, because they're always worried that their stuff won't get recommended if they do live streams. So they unlist the live streams, so you can't go back and rewatch them. Or they decide, no, I don't want to do that because it's long form content. Nobody's going to watch it. So I'm hoping that changes in the future. But right now, there's very few who do it. I know that Zipron Disney does occasionally, but he doesn't do it. It's not consistent, I would say. It comes up from time to time. I've been trying to encourage Wally DM to do it. I have... the reality is, if you want someone who's consistent in terms of monster lore, AJ Pickett does his live streams, but he unlists his live streams. And I did ask him not to do that, but he does unlist them. And he's got good reason to do so. Okay? The thing is that, and this is Jordan right now, Flute Slute, is saying exactly where it is. To give you an idea, I'm going to go through this, but I'm going to come back to your question, Slick Nasty, about questions and live streaming and content that's Q&A stuff. This is awesome new gig for you. Yeah, I look, I am amazed they came to me, because it's not like I could approach them. They come to you. That's how it works. Overboard DM, I thought you were going to talk about the Beholder Dragon. No, I wasn't, actually. Not really. Ginzo, agree, role-playing and not, what's that? Scorn? The past and scorn the past. It happened. Yeah, learn from the past is what we need, absolutely. Okay, so, here's the thing. I need to go very, very shortly because I need to get myself organised, and I've got a live stream coming up, and Jordan knows this. I'm going to read out what Jordan has to say, because for years I've been watching YouTubers telling me what I should be doing on my channel, only to find out something very telling that I did not fully understand, and I've tried to explain it to other people and they have not really listened to me. So this is what he's got to say. A lot of YouTubers are scared of live streams ruining the channel, as if YouTube would decide their channel is bad or something. That's exactly it. I don't think it's a warranted fear. So what Jordan is saying is that because so many other channels tell you what to do on your channel, like, don't live stream. If you live stream, unlist it, okay? And make sure it's topic focused, and make sure it's not a general Q&A, and all those sorts of things. Here's the thing that I learned. I followed that advice. Okay, I still want to live stream. I'm going to keep it to an hour. I'm going to try to stay to an hour or hour and a half. It's going to be topic focused. So all my live streams have a title to them, so it's searchable. And it's focused, so people know what they're in for. It's not just a general Q&A like Luke does, which I think is actually still perfectly fine. And then once they had run their course and I'd done it, they go unlisted. Do you know what happened to my channel? It went up and then it went down. It went up in terms of revenue and profit, being profitable and success, and then it went down. Why? Do you know what I found out? I found out this. Live streams are watched by 80 to 90% of my subscribers. And they can't always watch it while I'm live because they're busy doing other things. During a live stream, I may get 50 or 60 views. People jumping in and out. Now that's compared, so about 20%, 10 to 20% are people not subscribed to my channel who will jump into this live stream, and they actually generally probably just leave. Or they might decide they like what they see and they stay. But generally, it's those people who subscribe to my channel who like the live streams. Here's another thing I discovered. I have live streams that have 40,000 to even up to 100,000 views and have actually made me a lot of money, but that's not always the case. It takes a long time. Long form content, you've got to find your audience. It takes a long time to make money off them and for an audience to find them and like them. Isn't that interesting? Now, edited videos that are short or shorter, like, 2 minutes to 5 minutes long, well, they often get quite a few views and then they stop, but they never make that much money, and people often will watch more of it than a long form content, but it's usually only somewhere between 2 minutes to 5 minutes, and that's it. Long form content, I'm usually seeing 9 minutes to 15 minutes, so they watch for longer, just fewer people, right? Another thing I discovered, live stream painting. People who watch those sorts of things watch from the very beginning to the very end. They just turn it on while they're painting and they're doing their painting and they just listen. And they're happy as Larry. YouTube will try to stick an ad, a mid-roll ad in, whether I want to have it there or not, every 2 or 3 minutes, and I have to take them out. Okay? So that is what's going on. What I discovered is a lot of the people who are watching the live stream stuff, it takes them weeks, sometimes a month before they can get to it. And they keep coming back for it. And a lot of people will watch certainly the presentation, but are also there for the Q&A because they know I will answer questions that people present. And people are actually interested in those questions. Yes, I am trying to get Overboard or Joe to live stream. I'm trying to get him to live stream painting miniatures because I know that the painting miniatures community will watch the entire thing from beginning to end. This is what I found. You don't get a lot of people watching them, but they watch the whole thing. So as soon as I stopped unlisting my videos, do you know what happened to my channel? YouTube told me I was making less money and that fewer people were watching my stuff. That's what the analytics actually told me. I'm making less money and fewer people are watching my stuff, and a lot of the people watching my live streams aren't watching for very long. And do you know what happened? My Google AdSense revenue check gets, or payment comes through into my account, and it bears no resemblance to what YouTube is telling me. No resemblance whatsoever. What did that tell me? That the analytics on YouTube is actually a waste of my time, and that I'm not catering to the community that I've built. So I have stopped unlisting my live streams. And when I find enough time, all of the unlisted live streams that I still think have some value, I will make them public again, but not all at once. Okay? There are 356 of them. That's right. That's how many unlisted live streams I have. 356. That is almost like a whole year if I live stream every single day. And at one point I was live streaming 4 times a day. So, what has that taught me? Don't pay attention to everything you see on YouTube giving you advice on how to run your channel. And don't listen to the analytics on your channel because they're actually often incorrect. And unless you've been doing this a while, you won't realize this. And that's it. That's why I do things the way I do it. And now I am in a situation where I don't even have to worry that much about what happens with revenue off YouTube, because frankly, the new job is going to do all of the work and you're going to get exactly what you wanted in the first place, because I don't need to worry about YouTube punishing me for doing something different. Ha ha ha. Raphael, how's it going? Oh, hello, Todd. You love the Q&A. It's been super helpful as a new DM. Well, you're going to get a lot of Q&A with the tutorials that I'm running on Lighthall. That's what it's there for. Raphael, Fizban has great final bosses. Yes, it does. It has some good lore. I wouldn't say enough. Good hooks for campaigns and dragons. Yep. Creatures, majority of high quality. I think it's great. Yeah, look. I look, if you are new to Dungeons and Dragons, you probably have that view. I don't think that it is as good a book as it really should have been. I frankly find the quality and what they've done is pretty mediocre, except for Chapter 5, which I think is almost perfect. Almost perfect. Okay, Overboard, what do you got here? When I watch Fred's live stream, he calls me Larry. Do I call you Larry? I thought I called you Joe. Have I been calling you Larry? I don't think you call you... When did I call you Larry? It was Joe, isn't it? Joe, not Larry, Joe. Okay. Ragnarok, 2887. Thanks for the great content, friend. You are welcome. Taught me loads of useful things as I get to grips with being a new DM. Well, I'm building programs for new DMs and for experienced DMs, because people have been saying I need to do something for the more experienced people, so it's going to happen. Anyway, I have been here way too long. I need to get organized because I'm supposed to be somewhere else very shortly, and I'm not nervous to meet Jordan or talk with him, but I am looking forward to it, so I need to make sure I am prepared. So look, thank you to my patrons. Thank you to everybody who's been watching my live streams. Thank you for the support. Guess what? Great things are on the horizon for the future in a way that you cannot imagine, and I could never foresee happening, and I had almost given up on. Great things are on their way. So please look after your family, your friends, yourself. Make sure to be nice to your neighbors. And hey, till next time, keep rolling those 20s. The round table, they'll get released when they get released. I try not to release too many all at once. Lovin? Yeah. Don't worry, they'll come. All of the patrons get access to the roundtable discussions before they are published, sometimes months and months in advance.